It's just really cool.
I don't care about that. Look what's finally on the shelves in the state. The brand new 2025 80th anniversary motorized Thomas trains. Let's go do a video and see what they're all about. You guys excited?
Yes, so excited.
I was a huge fan of the Tomy and Trackmaster toys growing up, but things haven't been the same since Mattel took over in 2014, and seemed to be more concerned about turning every new train set into a nonsensical Hot Wheels style gimmick emporium. But when the new 80th anniversary motorized engines were announced earlier this year, they had my attention. So now let's see, were they worth the hype? Watch the whole video to find out how you can win these trains. And here we are. These are 3 of the engines, 3 of the new series from the 2025 80th anniversary motorized line. First of all, I wanted to say I'm filming this outside, so I hope there's not too much background noise. It was just a nice day out here in Tennessee. I figured why not come outside and get some natural lighting for this. But anyway, I went to 2 Walmarts and a Target for this video. I was holding off to filming it because I really wanted to find a duck, but I couldn't find one in Nashville. The first Walmart I had only had Thomas, Scotsman, and Gordon. The second one only had Thomas, Scotsman, and James. So we ended up with these 3 and we're gonna take a look at them. This is the first time in over a decade I've actually paid attention to a Thomas release. Mattel took over the Thomas toys in 2014 and 15 or so. And you know, ever since they did that, I didn't have any interest in them, especially the motorized engines, because they took over what had basically been one continuous toy series from, you know, the start of the Tomy Blue Track era all the way into Trackmaster Classic, you know, up till 2013 or 2014. All those engines worked on the same track, same kind of couplers, you know, a lot of the tooling was the same, you know, so it really felt like Mattel kind of put a big roadblock in the series. And we're going to talk about that later. I think there's one thing about Mattel's motorized line that really is the absolute worst piece about it, and that I think even though these classic engines look pretty good, I think that it's the biggest detriment to the series. But I'm excited about these. This is the first, you know, non-all engines go reboot merchandise in a long time. From teaser photos that we saw earlier this year, these look really good. The proportions, especially on the tank engines, look great. The tender engines are kind of another thing. We'll talk about that later as well. But I was excited for these. I'm still waiting for the new die-cast engines to hit the shelves here in the States. I don't think they've reached the US yet, but the second that these motorized engines hit the shelves, I wanted to look at them and see what all they had going on. So up first is Thomas. He's got 2 troublesome trucks with him. Let's take a look at Thomas first. This one is strong. I think the proportions are really, really solid on this. There's a look at the face. I know some people have had theirs showing up with kind of like cross-eyed faces and stuff. This is a lot better than Trackmaster Revolution stuff from, you know, before all engines go. That is 100% certain. Really, really light. But overall, that's not bad at all. I'm really glad they painted the running board. The buffers being painted is great. The side rod detail is great. This one has some like dust or, you know, some kind of texture like that on the side, you know, because he's got these troublesome trucks with him, probably pulling a freight train. And I really like that all of this is printed on. There's one sticker I can see on here, and it's the cab windows, which I'd rather that be printed too. But overall, that's not bad. The paint's a little messy on the front. As you can see, there's some red plastic showing through that lantern right there. But overall, that's great. Best looking Thomas motorized they've made in a decade, as far as I'm concerned. And here's the troublesome trucks. These are pretty strong as well. They feel a little short to me. The Tomy and Trackmaster ones were a little bit longer, and I think they felt a little bit more proportionally accurate. But I love that they have a load in them. That feels very classic Trackmaster, classic Tomy. I like that the faces are actually molded separate pieces of plastic and not just a sticker like they were for, you know, all of our childhoods. Yeah, again, a little light. Wish the axles were metal and not plastic, but that's strong. I really like that a lot. And then here's a different one with the alternate face. Yeah, I really like these troublesome trucks. They're very, very good. They're a lot better than what we were getting for the last, you know, 10 or 11 years. So the Thomas set, I think, is good. And I think Percy and Duck look good too. All the tank engines look good. And I really don't have any qualms with them other than they won't run on the blue track and on the Trackmaster brown track because of just Mattel needed to make a whole different track system for them, which I think is ridiculous. But the tender engines are where we're gonna start to see the cracks forming here with this line. And then we're gonna talk about, in my opinion, what the single main issue with everything Mattel's done with the motorized series is, and why fans never seem to be happy with what Mattel puts out with the motorized line. And honestly, I'm kind of in that camp with the you know, people that are unhappy about where Mattel's taken this stuff, because I think there's been a major drop. Even like the later Trackmaster stuff, you know, was still solid, and it was never the same after Revolution started. But here's James, and the first thing you'll notice about James, or the first thing I noticed, is he's fat. That is a fat James. That does not look right at all. And we're gonna talk about why that is in a little bit, I promise. But yeah, take a look at him. The back of the cab doesn't have anything, but that's, you know, not the end of the world. Detail-wise, it's strong. The face looks good, white running board. They included his front pony truck, which is cool. Again, it's got those new side rod parts that are exclusive to these engines. And yeah, the tender's fine. Actually, that's interesting. The coal comes out. Back in the day was the battery cover for the Tomy engines, and you would just unscrew that to put the batteries in. And this tanker's not bad either. The mold line is a little bit obvious there in the center. The rolling stock is not bad, and the detail on the engines is you know, it's very, very adequate compared to what we've been getting. But there's a couple things we're going to talk about here towards the end of the video. But first, we're going to open the Flying Scotsman and see what he's all about. By the way, I should have mentioned these were all running $14.88 in Walmart. Let's just call it 15 bucks. It's been so long since I've bought a new Thomas train that I don't really know what that would be comparable to for the AEG stuff or the stuff before that. My main Thomas plug back in the day was TJ Maxx, if you can believe that, back when they had all the good Tomy and Trackmaster stuff. But here's Scotsman. First of all, I'll say this, I saw some other reviews of this. I thought he was gonna look even more proportionately off in person. He actually looks a little better in person than in the videos I've seen. I'm a little tired of that face for Flying Scotsman, though basically every Scotsman toy they've made has that face. It sort of looks goofy to me, and especially when the eye isn't printed that straight, it just looks kind of dumb. But that's not the end of the world. You know, where we're gonna start to see some of the cracks forming with this guy is just how short these tenders are, and how short in length, but especially in height. Look at the tender compared to Scotsman, you know, his engine. It's like half the height, and it looks really messy. If you ask me, it looks like they put a wooden railway car behind a Trackmaster engine, just to give you some sort of perspective on that. Yeah, that's probably the biggest issue I have with Scotsman in terms of, you know, his whole set, the engine and the two tenders. I'm glad they put the two tenders in. That's a cool detail. And then look at this too, another problem I've just sort of noticed. There's a major gap between the tender and the engine. And I think that's, you know, part of that is to blame on the engines not having their batteries in the tenders anymore, which in some ways is a plus, but, you know, without you having to have the wires running from the engine to the tender, they don't really have a reason to put it much closer. But that back coupler, that could be so much shorter. That thing is so long. But there's Flying Scotsman. So overall, from an aesthetic standpoint, from the detail, from the printing, this is definitely a step up. But right now I'm gonna tell you about what I think is the ultimate negative factor about anything motorized that Mattel's made. And just like that, we are back, and I've taken the shells off of these three engines, and this is the main point that I've wanted to make in this whole video. This is what I've, you know, planned on talking about, that I think is really what Mattel did wrong here. And I'm sure it was a budget decision. I'm sure it was in an effort to make less pieces they have to manufacture. But I want you guys to look at these three engine, battery, chassis, powered units, whatever you want to call them. What do you notice about these? They're all identical. All three of these engines have the exact same powered unit underneath the hood. It's like if, you know, if a car had the exact same engine in it, if every car had the same engine in it. That's not gonna work in the long term, because Thomas characters are all very distinct. You know, back in the day, Tomy, Trackmaster, those engines had different bases. Most of them had different tooling. You know, there was some repeat on things, but for the most part, if an engine needed a different chassis or different tooling to make it look like the one in the show, they would go ahead and make different tooling for it. But ever since Mattel stepped in, they've been dead set on using this very same chassis on all the motorized trains. That goes from the Trackmaster Revolution stuff, into the All Engines Go stuff, and into right now. Every engine they've made in motorized, as far as I'm aware, has this exact chassis. If it's a diesel, you know, they strip the side rod off, but again, it's the same. And when you do that, and when you standardize a line that much, you lose a lot of the personality, and you lose a lot of the detail in the characters, because there's only so many ways you can make a shell that fits around this block right here. You know, you're very, very limited. And that's really what I think has hurt Mattel, and that is the reason why we see these tender engines look so bloated compared to, you know, the original James from the Tomy and Trackmaster line. I don't think Scotsman was ever made in like play rail or anything, so it's hard to really give a comparison to him, but we can look at an old Gordon for, you know, just a similar sized engine. But this is really where I think Mattel's problems are, is that they're afraid to do minor things, minor nuanced things that will benefit the appearance of the toy, because they don't want to spend money on, you know, on making things that are different from the already available line of tooling that they have. So I think that is ultimately what hurt these engines. I think all of the negative reviews from these engines I've seen online stem from that. They stem from that need for overly simplistic design that Mattel's going for. You know, there's other complaints that I have. I'm never been a fan of the all engines go track system, or the Trackmaster 2 Revolution system, rather. I don't like that these won't really run on the track that we had growing up. Kind of makes that stuff, you know, deemed useless if you collect this kind of engine or this kind of line of the trains. I think the main problem is that chassis, and I think if Mattel would be willing to go ahead and make different tooling for different engines, or maybe even return to the batteries being in the tenders like they were for decades, that they would see some more positive response. Hang on one second. We got one more thing to talk about before the end of the video, and that is the giveaway. So I'm personally not seeing myself collecting this line in the future, so I want them to go to somebody that will enjoy them. So I'm gonna send all 3 of these sets to one of you guys. All you have to do to enter is comment down below what engine you think Mattel should make next in this new 80th anniversary motorized series, and I'll pick a winner on July 15th to send all of these to. So again, all you have to do is comment on this video with the Thomas character that you want Mattel to make in this line, and you'll be entered, and we'll pick that winner in a few weeks here. But in the meantime, guys, thanks for watching this video. Let me know what you think. Was I too harsh? Am I right? Am I wrong? Where do you think my opinions lie? Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you think Mattel's new toys are going to sell? Are we going to see more, or is this a one-time thing? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.